This is Dara with Somatic Spiritual Counseling, and today's video is on healing the inner elder, which is my riff on healing the inner child, a commonly used expression and concept across all kinds of therapeutic modalities being used today. So, what do I mean when I say healing the inner elder? The chances are, if you've done inner child work before, those wounds that your inner child is carrying that you're aware of, and maybe the wounds that you're not aware of, they're probably not just yours. If we zoom out and look at ourselves and the wounds that we carry within the larger context of our lineage and our ancestry, um, it would be accurate to say that our inner child is probably also our inner elder. It might be our grandmother or our great grandmother or our mother's wounds that our inner child is carrying. So, this is a different way to talk about the same concept. But because it's a different way, I think there are different tools that we can bring in to use when we're healing our inner elder. So what are these tools? If you've watched some of my other videos on ancestral healing and the importance of working with lineage and place, you might recognize some of what I'm saying now from those. So the main practice that I like to use when working with our inner elder is place as a starting point. So if you'll indulge me here in this video for a moment, I want you to imagine the place where you feel your ancestry comes from. And maybe this is just like a split-second image that you get. And maybe there's a couple or a few that filter in if you open yourself up. So, with this landscape, or this series of landscapes that come to mind, I'm curious, are they from the country that you're currently in? Are they from the United States, the landscapes? Are they from different places in Europe, Africa, Asia, South America? Where are these landscapes located? And once you determine that, are they connected to your blood ancestry? Are they connected to a different kind of ancestry that you feel called to, maybe a spiritual lineage, or some other form of connection? All of these threads, all of these ways that we inherit our sense of self are valid. Oftentimes, I find that the best place to start when working with ancestry is with our blood ancestry. So, if you need a suggestion or recommendation, my suggestion is to start with either your mother's or your father's line, and go back to a place where the family lived for at least a couple of generations. So maybe if your family are recent immigrants to the States, you might trace it back a couple generations to where your body last remembers being for a longer period of time, like maybe a couple hundred years or longer, if that's possible. And once you find that place, the next thing to do is to explore it. Get a feel for it, almost like you're going to a place in real life, you're traveling somewhere. What is it like to be in that place? Is there a certain feeling, tone, or quality to it? You could also think of this as almost like a video game, like when you're exploring this place, like are there certain like adventures that pop up? Are there different things that are out of order that need to be put in order? Does somebody come out of their house and say, hey, I really need you to help me find these herbs in the garden that I can't find myself? What is it like to be in this place and to start to explore just in your mind's eye what is asked of you when you go there? Another thing you might attune yourself to as you're exploring this place is your sense of direction. So sense of direction is interesting because it's often used metaphorically, right? We have our kind of sense of direction, maybe even our sense of purpose in life. Let's take it back one step and take it literally. Where is north and south? Orient yourself in this imaginary world of your ancestors. what direction are you facing? What direction do you feel called to face? What direction do you feel called to turn away from? And just notice what you notice when you do that and orient yourself in this way using the directions. Now, we can use the directions as guides, almost like they are beings themselves and they have information for us. So, you might have noticed that you felt really called to stand facing one direction, or perhaps really turned away from standing in one direction. Um, Either one of those is a valid source of potential information, right? Something that is pulling us closer or something that is repelling us. So, maybe on your own later, it might be helpful to explore what is it that repels you or pulls you in a certain way. And once you start to do this, you might notice that that transfers into this healing of your inner elder process to a sense of purpose or mission in your own life. So we're taking that sense of direction from a literal sense of direction into a more figurative sense of direction that might help you find a deeper meaning and help you figure out who you are in this lifetime. So that's one way you can work with the inner elder, is through place. It could be really impactful if you choose to actually journey to those lands in real life and see how you feel when you're in those places, perhaps using other somatic tools that you can draw from if you're familiar with the somatic work that we offer here at Somatic Spiritual Counseling. When you attune your body to the landscape around you, oftentimes you receive subtle information about it, just the same as you would receive information and insight about your own body if you're attuning to it. So we're almost using the landscape as an extension of our own bodies. Another way that I've found is really helpful in healing your inner elder is the practice of forgiveness. Um, Forgiveness is really interesting because it's almost like a change in the direction of how something is flowing, right? Usually the opposite of forgiveness is blame or passing something downwards, right? Like maybe your grandmother acted a certain way towards your father and then your father passed that down to you. So the direction is going this way. But when we forgive someone, we're pushing back on that. And we're creating harmony. And then something can move more easily in both directions. So you might notice with forgiveness, it's a way, if you've tried this before or had any success forgiving somebody for something, it's a way that you're creating not only space for yourself but for them as well, right? Because they're so stuck going this direction, and if you introduce the idea of going a different direction, there's more space for a back and forth to happen. So what does forgiveness look like, and how can we use that practice in healing our inner elder? It's complicated and complex because forgiveness cannot be forced. And in fact, if you've had the experience of somebody demanding forgiveness from you, you might have noticed that it feels really bad to give that when it's not freely offered. So what I can suggest here are some preliminary practices to cultivating the ability to forgive, and then if it comes naturally one day, perhaps, for example, you have a father who is very emotionally unavailable and you can't connect with him, and you've spent years of your life in therapy explaining all of your problems through the lens of this dysfunctional father. Maybe through these practices, eventually something will shift and you'll realize, oh, this poor man, right? He really suffers because he's not emotionally available with himself. Um, and maybe there's a little bit less anger or blame of the way you are on the way he is. So one way you can cultivate forgiveness is through connecting to your heart. And I know that sounds so cliche, and I hope you weren't expecting something profound and original, because I have nothing to offer. Connecting to your heart and simply asking for the grace to forgive. In Hawaii, there's a very beautiful phrase that is often spoken as a forgiveness practice that goes, thank you, I'm sorry, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. That's how it goes. Even just saying those words out loud, maybe once or a couple of times, could be very powerful. I've certainly found that to be the case. Even if you can't say it to necessarily the person that you're directing that at, maybe just practice doing it with very small things, or even with nature. Maybe you're just speaking to the clouds. Um, Thank you, please forgive me. I love you. So that's my suggestion for working with healing your inner elder. If you have any suggestions or practices you've done that you've noticed have helped you with your inner elder or your inner child, I'd love to hear about them. You can leave notes for me in the comments below, or you can reach out to us at somaticspiritualcounseling.com. And I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you for watching this video as always. Until next time, bye bye.